Welcome to Fishing Relaunched. Well, smallmouth bass, what can you say about smallies? They are the hardest fighting fish there is when it comes to freshwater game fish in North America. You gotta love them. I've got what I think are the 10 best lures or baits for catching smallmouth bass. Now, by all means, I'd like to hear what your top 10 are. These are just mine. Drop it in the comments below. It'd be really interesting to compare and see what you think your top 10 favorite smallie catching lures or presentations are. Let's go. Now, coming in at number 10 is the Ned Rig. The Ned Rig is probably a very popular lure for a lot of people. Not necessarily for me personally. Maybe I haven't had enough experience with it. I do think it's a great lure for hard bottoms or rocky bottoms where there isn't much weed growth. I've experienced fishing it with weeds, and it has pulled up a lot of weeds from the bottom because of that. I found that a little frustrating. But I think it's situational. I think you have to be fishing this under the right circumstances. And hard bottoms or rocky bottoms, I think it would be an excellent choice. Coming in at number 9 is the Frog. Well, what can I say about the Frog? It is a wonderful way to catch a fish. There's something incredibly satisfying about it. I'm not saying the Frog is the best way to catch a smallmouth bass. I think it's better suited to largemouth bass, to tell you the truth. I've had a lot of misses on frogs trying to get smallies. Unless you're catching a really large smallie, chances are the frog is a little too big for the smallie's mouth. Now, if you catch a really big smallie, it probably can get the frog in its mouth. It's been my experience that when I've caught smallie on frogs, they've usually been larger ones. I think it's ideally suited to a largemouth bass. Smallies can be a bit of a challenge, but a great way to do it nonetheless. Coming in at number 8 is the Whopper Plopper. The Whopper Plopper is an exciting topwater lure. It casts well because it's usually fairly heavy. It has a propeller at the back end of it that creates a lot of commotion on the water's top. That attracts the bass to it. They'll strike it and strike it hard. You'll have a nice active fight in your hands. It really can be a handful trying to land a smallie sometimes, even with treble hooks. They're very good at shaking lures off. They can jump and dive and spin and do just about any kind of acrobatic maneuver. So it isn't always an automatic you're going to get the bass to the boat using a Whopper Plopper, but it sure will create a lot of excitement. Coming in at number 7 is the Popper, another topwater lure. This one is a little different than the Whopper Plopper in that it's a lot slower. It's a slow, deliberate jerk on the topwater. It creates a little bit of movement. It's tantalizing for the fish where it just kind of sits there, and sometimes you can have a pause and it can just come up and smash it. Quite irresistible when it's just sitting there on the top. And of course, as you're pulling it back, you're displacing water and making sounds and noises. Anyway, they'll smash it hard too, and like any topwater lure, once you have the fish on, it's going to fight like the dickens. You do everything you can to get off, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it's a lot of fun. My number 6 choice is the Drop Shot. The Drop Shot is an ingenious rig where you have a sinker, usually a teardrop-shaped sinker. It sits below the hook. With the hook suspended above the sinker, it can be suspended off the bottom, and the fish can come along and see it easier. They don't have to worry about it being in the weeds or in the muck or anything. So it's a lot more tantalizing for the fish to just come up and get it, a lot easier for them to see it as well. And a very efficient way of catching smallmouth bass when they're situated near the bottom. Now things are getting interesting as we get into the top 5. At number 5, I have the Swim Jig. Now the Swim Jig is a very versatile lure. You can use different types of jigs, but generally a jig is just a hook with a weight, and you can put anything you want attached to it. In this case, a swim jig means something that can mimic a swimming fish. Paddle tails work great for a lot of species, including smallmouth bass. I'll often put a paddle tail on the back end of a swim jig. And you can just vary the way it swims back to the boat. You can pop it, you can swim it fast or slow. You can swim it shallow or deeper. That's what's so great about it. And like I say, you're going to catch more than just bass with this thing. You're going to catch pike. You're going to catch a lot of different species with a swim jig. So it's just a great all-round presentation for a lot of different species of fish. And no exception is the smallmouth bass. Coming in at number 4 is the Texas Rig. This has become very popular recently with a lot of bass fishermen. The Texas rig is a weedless presentation, usually uses an offset hook. You can have a bullet sinker on top of the hook to bring it down, or you can use split shots, which I tend to like to use. In any case, you can cast the Texas rig pretty well anywhere, and you don't have to worry about getting snagged or hung up too much. It is that weedless presentation where you bury the worm into the hook and let the fish just engulf the whole thing and take it with them. This is a great lure if you're fishing where there's stumps or logs, rocks, weeds, it doesn't matter. It can be used indiscriminately to get to where bass like to hang out in heavy cover, and that's what's so great about it, really. That's why it's so popular, and it works well with largemouth or smallmouth. It's just a really good lure when you're going after fish aggressively in tough spots, and it works really, really well, as is evidenced here with that nice bass. Coming in at number 3 is the jerkbait. Now, the jerkbait is a great lure for smallmouth bass. It's also great for a lot of other species like pike in particular. It just is very attractive to these fish. It suspends in the water column. It can be an inch or two below the surface, or it can be much deeper depending on how the lure is designed. It comes in a few different sizes and a lot of different colors and shapes. Mostly the shape though is like a minnow. It is a long profile. It sits in the water, and you can literally, as the name suggests, you jerk it back to the shore. In that jerking motion, it mimics a dying bait fish. Yeah, a lot of fish just can't resist that, and they'll come up and think it's an easy meal and come up and take it hard. And you know, they'll have treble hooks on them, usually a couple or 3 depending on the size of the jerk bait. It's a real winner with smallies and a lot of other species too. And coming in second place is the crankbait. Crankbaits come in many different sizes and colors. They dive to different depths, some shallow, some a little deeper. You can retrieve them in so many different ways. You can retrieve them slow or fast, pop them, whatever you want really. They're going to provide a variety, especially when fish are in an active mood. They will go after crankbaits. Aggressive smallies will devour them. And of course, they're a multi-species lure, so you're going to get pike, you're going to get a lot of other fish. Any fish really that are in a biting mood, crankbaits are the way to go. You can cast them out pretty far. They have good weight to them, good bulk. You can troll them. I had my personal best smallie on a crankbait, so I am sold on them, obviously. This was a 7-pounder in this case, and gave a hell of a fight. Cast it out shallow. And oddly enough, my daughter got her line tangled in with mine at the same time, so it was a really weird fight and really weird catch situation, but it did deliver me a 7-pound smallie, so I can't complain. Crankbaits are just such a versatile lure, and of course lots of anglers just fill their tackle box with these crankbaits. My personal favorite, the number one way to catch smallmouth bass has to be the wacky rig. This is such a simple yet super effective way of catching smallmouth bass. If you have smallies in your area, you have to use the wacky rig. Just get an offset hook and slip on a split shot sinker, preferably at least 1, maybe 2 if they're small ones. That'll get the line down near the bottom where the fish are. Next is putting on your bait, usually a plastic worm, 5, 6, 7 inches will do. Thread it into the middle of the hook, let it dangle there. Once you cast it, it's going to flutter down to the bottom. If it gets to the bottom and no fish has taken it yet, you can pop it back slowly. You can reel it back slowly. You can reel it back fast even. Sometimes that works. You're always watching your line, seeing when it gets tight. And when you feel weight on the line, it's not going to be a hit, like a hard hit like you would get with a crankbait. This is going to be a much more subtle bite. You're going to see the line tighten. You're going to feel the weight. That's when you want to start reeling in hard. Maybe sweep the rod away from the fish, keeping the line tight, reeling up your slack fast, keeping that fish on. Once it's on, now if the hook set is a good one, you have a very good chance of getting that fish in the boat. Enjoy the ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, or comment. Really helps the channel. In the meantime, thanks for watching again, and I'll catch you later on Fishing Relaunched. Cheers, everyone.